We are in the midst of the off season, and it sucks because I miss football. Football's a long way away. But the good news is that we have a lot of different storylines in the college ranks across the state, including 3 new FBS coaches. We have had complete turnover in 25% of the FBS teams in the state of Texas, which is pretty rare, I would say. I bet that most states don't go through 25% turnover. States with more than two teams.
Sure.
Generally speaking, there's not that kind of turnover. But we have that turnover this year. UTSA has a new coach in Frank Wilson. North Texas has a new coach in DCTF Live's own Seth Luttrell.
Yes.
And Texas State has a new coach.
Is he a co-host now? Is that what that reference was?
And Texas State has a new coach in DCTF Live's own Everett Withers.
I feel like that's misleading.
No, I don't think it is.
I'll let you go with
They
it.
have been on the show.
Yeah, but I don't know if that makes them.
I think once you are on the show, we are claiming you as our own. That's what we're doing.
That's one way to do it.
He's a DCTF Live
Member?
endorser.
Endorser?
There you go.
Ooh, I don't know about that either,
Yeah.
but okay.
So there are 3 new FBS coaches in the state of Texas, and they're all entering different kind of situations.
For sure.
We'll start with North Texas.
Okay.
So Seth Luttrell comes from North Carolina, where he was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And he takes over a North Texas team that, simply put, was dreadful last
Not
year
good.
in pretty much every aspect of the of football, but especially when it came to offense. The offense was miserable. 124th in the nation in scoring offense, tied with Kansas. Think about how bad Kansas was last year, okay?
I'm thinking about it.
Think about it.
I'm thinking about it right now.
It hurts, right?
It's awful.
It's awful. North Texas and Kansas scored the same amount of points. Not good. Not good. And it's
but one of them almost beat Texas Tech.
With Kansas, at least you have the excuse of, they were playing the Big 12. Like, North Texas playing Conference USA.
Yeah.
Like, this is the offense was terrible. So Seth Luttrell's edict is clear. He needs to revamp this offense and get it going. The good news for him is that he does bring back, if he's a guy who is a offensive-minded, immediately you're going to be like, ooh, I still worry about that defense, right? 9 starters back on defense.
It's nice.
It's going to be nice that if you have to revamp the offense, it looks like the defense should be able to take care of itself. And to a certain extent,
Yeah, I was
should
about
be
to
able
say
to be
that defense
improved.
did still give up 60+ to Portland State.
Not great, but bringing back 9 starters gives you a better feel for this program.
No
Just saying,
question.
okay, you've got experience over there. Offensively, with 6 starters returning, they're going to have some rebuilding to do, obviously. And I'll tell you that I think, and we've been very bullish on one member of their offense, Jeffrey Wilson, their running back,
No
that
question.
we think could be a real star for them, and star in the making. But it's an uphill climb for Seth Luttrell and North Texas. I think a reasonable expectation next year. When you look at the fact that they went what 1-11.
Mm-hmm.
I think a reasonable expectation for them is probably much like you saw with SMU this year, 3-9. Get something like 3-9. Get a couple of wins on the board.
I was more or less just curious if you would go as far as 3.
I think that if they can get 3 wins and just instill this confidence in the program and say, guys, we're moving forward, because you're not going to rebuild it in a day. So I think 3 wins is a reasonable expectation for North Texas. That's all we're going. We're going with a reasonable expectation. They could win 10 games. They probably won't.
Yeah.
But they could win 10 games.
But if they get 3, you'd go. That's
okay,
reasonable.
That's a nice step forward.
Yeah.
UTSA. So UTSA, I would say, is the most surprising coaching change, where Larry Coker resigns and they bring in Frank Wilson from LSU. Frank Wilson is a nice get for them, a guy who has some skins on the wall. And remember, this is also an offensive-minded guy.
Yeah,
so
and lauded on the recruiting trails.
Absolutely, he was known as the big recruiting ace. You know what I mean? He is an offensive guy, and this is an offense that really struggled last year. 22 points a game, and they just did not have a whole lot going for them. The good news for them is that they're going to have an opportunity to get some young guys reps.
Yes.
Bringing back 5 starters on offense, 5 starters on defense. They're going to need to grow up pretty quickly. They're going to be one of the youngest teams in Conference USA next year. And I think this is, if you're looking for a team that may, in fact, take a step backwards in their first year
might be this
of
one.
a coach, it might be UTSA.
Yeah.
They're going to be really young.
Yeah.
They're going to be working in pretty much an entirely new offense. A lot of the key players defensively are gone. They went 3-9 next year. I think a reasonable expectation for them, stay steady.
Yeah.
Stay steady at about 3-9. Win 3 games. You win 4, great, fantastic. But I think 3 wins, once again, is a reasonable expectation for UTSA. I just don't know if they have the horses right now to give Frank Wilson what he needs to win right now.
Sure.
I think they're going to be very young. I think that they're going to be a team that I think they're going to be a team that is going to be growing as the season goes on. What you see in week 1 is not going to be what you see in week 13. I think that there's going to be a growing and kind of learning process there with Frank Wilson. And then there's Texas State. And Texas State is maybe the one that I'm the most interested in because they've got a guy there in Everett Withers who the one thing we've always said about him is that he's a winner.
Mm-hmm.
He comes in and he wins. He's a guy who won at his most recent stop. He's a guy who's won all over the place. A guy that you don't have to worry about winning. Everett Withers is a winner. Now, here's the problem. They're going to be probably the most green team in the state next year.
Yeah.
They're going to be really young.
Yeah.
4 starters on offense, 5 starters on defense back. Just 9 starters back. And when you look across the nation, here are the other teams with 9 or fewer starters coming back. Ready? Massachusetts, Akron, Louisiana Tech, Ohio State, Navy. That's the list.
So they're in the same group with Ohio State. Everything's great.
Everything's great, right? It's going to be a building process, and I'll tell you that I think that I bet Everett Withers' big push on the recruiting trail was simple. You want to play right away? Come on down. I think you are going to see a lot of young guys there. I think you're going to see a team that is pretty much ready to start over. The good news for them is that I don't think the Sun Belt's going to be that good next year. I think a lot of the powerhouses in the Sun Belt are taking a step back and coming back to the pack. So when you look at a team that went 3-9 next year, I think Texas State may, in fact, be worse than they were this past year. Mm-hmm. But I also think their record could be better. Does that make sense? I think that I think they could go 4-8 next year and actually improve in the record. But it be, in fact, a younger, less experienced, maybe even less talented team.
Honestly, purely on the fact that the Sun Belt is so volatile.
That's it.
You could honestly see
that is
Texas State going in either direction.
There are 2 very high variance teams next year. Texas State's one of them. Texas Tech's the other one.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 that I wouldn't be surprised if they went 1-11.
Yeah.
Also, wouldn't be surprised if they won 9 games.
Yeah.
You know. I think that those are 2 teams with very high variance.
Sure.
So, for me, I think a reasonable expectation for Texas State is to stay about the same, about 3-9. But I think that they also have of these 3 teams, if there's a team that's going to overachieve that, it's Texas State. Just because the schedule sets up well, and Everett Withers has proven that he can win as a head coach in FBS and FCS.
To be clear about your variance point, though, it would be very surprising if Texas Tech only won 1 game.
Correct.
Yes.
That is also true. But I just think that they're a very high variance team next year. So that's what we think of of reasonable expectations for the new coaches in the state of Texas. What do you think? Let us know. #DCTF Live.